Hello, hello. This is the Chicas Plus Equals podcast, a place where two chicas from Eastern Europe navigate real life. We're talking health, habits, mindset, relationships, and everything in between. Join the girl talk.
Hello, Jovana.
Hello, once again. Happy Friday. Well, happy Wednesday, actually, when people are gonna listen to this.
Aren't we gonna change the posting date? Well, this is breaking news, guys. We're changing the posting date.
You hear it here first. I hear it here first. Just kidding.
We are back here this Friday to record the next episode. Who God knows when it's gonna be actually posted. Because we're learning on the go, and it turns out editing takes a minute. But how are you today?
I'm feeling very, very well. My Friday started in a note that it usually starts, which is with cleaning. Friday mornings are my time of the week when I clean, and I clean the whole apartment, and I have Christmas lights. I don't know if you decorated for Christmas.
Already put them on.
Yes. So I have my Christmas lights. I have my little Christmas tree. The vibes are good, and I made. I don't know how would you call it in English. There would be a literal translation. It would be sweetheart. It would be sweetheart. This is a type of dessert, and made of jam and it's very, very nice, sweet, and I made it in an original recipe, and it has a lot of sugar. I didn't want to change anything, didn't want to make healthier options. I wanted a good old dessert that I like. Yes. Yeah.
I have no idea what a sweetheart is other than myself. I'm shameless, as you can tell. I'm also I came back from a trip and I have all this good energy. I went to a party with a bunch of my friends that I haven't seen in ages, and it's always such a good vibe, and it gave me so much. I don't know. I'm a bit more extroverted, as you can tell by my bad joke.
Do you want to share where you went and why you went?
Yeah. I just graduated from the University of Cambridge, and I went to celebrate my graduation, show my parents around, and just basically do that. It was very nice because it was very Christmassy everywhere, and I was very scared and nervous at first because I wasn't sure if my parents were going to like it and this and that. It was an interesting trip. It has its ups and downs, but it was great because obviously it's a bit stressful to have an event and organize your parents and everything because they don't speak English. So every day I felt like a nanny. But then on Saturday, on the second day, I was trying to get my friends around and just meet everybody. I wasn't actually, to be completely honest with you, I was very scared at first to invite people out because having been here for a long time in a kind of isolated environment back home, there was a lot of shame somebody can carry from, dealing with stuff in life, finding jobs, failing and trying again. Most of the time you just want to isolate. I would. But I was like, okay, I'm in town. I'm going to meet one or two friends. And then I asked this one friend out who knows everybody. And he instantly was like, well, you should invite more people. You should get a group going. And I then kind of reached out to people individually. And it was a bit stressful because, people have their own schedules and you don't know. Through my head, there were all these questions going on of would they even reply? Would they want to hang out with me? We're not really that close friends, but I admire them. I would like to meet them again before I leave Cambridge. In the end, everything turned out great. I was again, stressed because I couldn't figure out the perfect time. There was 4 events going on at the same time and everybody's super extroverted. So they're trying to go everywhere. But in the end, we managed to combine 2 events together. Somebody offered to host, and then it turned out to be one of the best cohorts and best group of people I could have tried. I couldn't even, it was all the people that I knew from my time in Cambridge, all the people that I loved and I knew before. So it was comfortable in a way. So it gave me a lot of good energy, and I couldn't have prepared a better gathering. It was great. I met some new people, but most of the people that were there I knew, and it was a nice way of saying goodbye and just, getting a bit inspired.
The way you were describing it to me on voice messages, it sounded like it was exactly what you needed from a trip in that moment. And it was interesting that when you said in one moment that if it felt great and you're carrying that energy back at home, but you're glad that you're at home, that it felt like if you would stay there and living there would be overwhelming, maybe too much.
Well, it's 100% true. I feel like this is a perfect thing to talk about in the the friendship episode. We're thinking
Mhm.
of recording an episode about friendship and all of that, because we've had different experiences with friendships throughout the years and how you manage them, what type of friends are there, and so on. And I definitely feel like I got caught up into socializing a lot during undergraduate. So that's why I feel like I know that if I were around that place 24/7, like I was in my gap year, for example, it would soon become destabilizing. So they're super fun, but you can't do it's like going out every day. You can't go out every day
Mhm.
to a club. You need some sanity.
Yeah, I'm glad that you had a good trip and that at the end it was successful because you're worried about how parents are going to react. And how did they feel after the trip?
Oh, well, surprisingly well. It seems like they're carrying good energy from it as well. But so talking about sanity, today's episode is going to be all about how to keep your mind calm and how to stay present. So we're going to be talking about mindfulness, which is something that we're very passionate about, and I feel like it's a common theme around how we share our life. So would you like to start, Jovana, with what got you into mindfulness? Where did you start? And were you interested in something that then led to an exploration of mindfulness, or did you notice something? Did something happen? What was your beginning like?
From what I can track it, I believe it started when I finished university and started getting more into jobs. And
Really?
yeah, because if you would ask me what did I do back, like for example in high school, I don't know if I had any, if I was conscious that I could recall thinking about it as being mindful. I was always this type of person who, last time we talked about productivity, for example, when I always remember with my friend from high school. I have to say shout out to Tamara, to Tatsi. We would always reminisce on us being in high school and
Oh,
going back home. We would walk with two other friends, and they would be, walking in front of us, just chatting, gossiping, talking about other people. And we were never into these kind of conversations. Tamara and I, we were always talking about, okay, what we did at school, when we come back, how do you want to organize your day, how you're gonna what you're gonna do, how you're gonna
oh,
like set your routine and study. We were always
super productive.
yeah, and interested in ourselves, in our lives, and how we can improve generally, not just talking about school and grades, but generally. Like we were always trying to lose weight, trying to hype each other up, trying to give each
So
other's
cute.
perspectives. And so if that could be also called mindfulness. Like I was not, I don't want to say
Always
always, but
aware.
yes, of topics and conversations that I liked and wanted to have with people and things that I was focusing. But if I can say that there was a point in time that I was okay from now on, like it's full on being mindful, which is, it's a funny sentence to say, is when I started, I think in 2022, started having courses, educational courses. They were all about self-worth, like
Uh-huh.
inner talk, setting boundaries, saying no,
Where
self-image you have,
where did you find
relationships you have.
this?
Through a friend who was in entrepreneurship, and
Heck
these
yeah.
yeah, and she was in these programs, and she knew, a lot of mentors, and I loved talking with her because I felt always inspired that she was from very beginning like interested in entrepreneurship, and she knew what she wanted to do, and I didn't. Yeah, like I was like, okay, I'm in university, I'm gonna finish, I'm gonna find a job, that's it. I started teaching classes, and I started thinking, maybe I can also like double myself a little bit into entrepreneurship waters, see how it feels, if it
Uh-huh.
suits me. And I started by going to courses, and that's how I started. That was my basically that was my therapy before actually started therapy.
Okay, cool. Well, one cool thing is that you know how you mentioned that your friend were into entrepreneurship and they always
Hmm.
inspired you. That's exactly the vibe that I got when I went back to Cambridge, just to kind of wrap it up there. That's exactly the reason why I got so much good energy out of it, because the party itself had the theme and it was the keen entrepreneurs party.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so all of us were like, I mean, no wonder I knew everybody there because that's how I entered Cambridge. But yeah, it's always good to have those types of friendships that inspire you, and they give you such good energy and inspire you to develop yourself either through a book or through a course. But what were the first things? So you found these courses. What were the first things that you were introduced to?
Well, ironically, this mindfulness thing started with me actually wanting to develop my business. But in the very first program that I started, the girl was talking about how you cannot start your business and build a business if your own foundation is not strong, if you don't know your values.
I like
If
that.
you, yeah, because tomorrow, for example, when you're showing up online and you're gonna get probably some comments and things are not gonna go linear, you have to know who you are. So before building a business, you have to start from yourself.
That is such a mindful way of doing business, and I love that, and I really wish everybody would approach business that way.
Yeah, yes, I loved it. Like, to be honest, at the end, I did not get too much into business itself
Mhm.
as much as it helped me on my own personal journey.
Yeah, but you never know when this is going to come in useful. Maybe later down the line, you will come back to the lessons you learned here and you'd start something when the time feels right or when, your values match an action.
Oh, 100%. I even noticed that by getting in corporate world. The way I was thinking before and how I built myself when I started corporate world, I knew how to set boundaries. I knew how to not please people. That was a good preparation for corporate world as well, even though back then I didn't plan on corporate in that moment when I was trying to build a business. Your journey, did it start in a similar way? Did it start way earlier?
Actually, no. It mine started completely differently, which I can't wait to explore further because I find it super interesting. Mindfulness can have a different definition to everyone, and it can serve different purposes to everyone. And I feel like combining these two perspectives will bring the whole package of mindfulness. Because in my case, I started very early when I was around 16, 15, something like that, and it's somewhat related to the reason why I got into productivity as well. It came from a point of being very dissatisfied with my life. I was like, yeah, at 15, I basically had the big aha moment of, life can be more than this and I want to make the most of it. And in order to make the most of my life, I had to take a good look at myself. And I think I always was very self-aware in terms of my emotions, but it's interesting to kind of look at where does this self-awareness come from. And I would stipulate that it comes from the fact that I wasn't a kid that had where to let go of their emotions. I didn't have where to share them. Because of that, I would end up journaling or I would end up, spending time with my own thoughts. And I think one thing that helped was having my own room once my sister went to college. So sorry, sis, but this kind of let me have my own space and my own silence to think. And it started with that moment of self-awareness of I want to make more of my potential. I want to be more because I used to have a lot of different challenges with socializing. I had a lot of fear. That was my main thing. Now my main catapult to productivity and mindfulness was just I was messed up and I needed to become functional. And mindfulness for me it started with meditation, and it started with controlling or finding peace in my own body, kind of calming down my nervous system. As I've told you in the previous episode, I couldn't focus. I would try to work on a task and then 5 minutes later I'll be drawing a sketch and be extremely distracted. That shows that I was reactive, and the same thing happened within my life. I was very sensitive. I'm a very sensitive kid in person right now, and because of that, whenever I go out into the world, if something happened, I would be very easily triggered, and I needed to find a way to hold my own, to contain myself. Otherwise I would just be scared all the time. I mean, I remember I used to battle social anxiety, and I used to be scared going out of the house. It was bad. So I had to find a way to find inner peace every time I came home so I can stabilize. And it started with the headspace in meditation and, the actual modern mindfulness, which is a type of sitting meditation where you observe your own thoughts and observe your own breathing. And having that time to observe my own thoughts, I loved it. I fell in love with the process of figuring out who I was and listening to myself. And, I would stay, at first, I I was not good at it. People tell me all the time, I can't start meditating, I can't sit down, I can't do this. And like, girl, my first meditation was 10 seconds. I was so ADHD. I couldn't focus for more than 10. You have to start from somewhere, but it's generally a very big plus to your life to have time where you can listen and quiet everything down.
I like that it started in a simple way, just not that it's simple to meditate. Again, it's simple, but it's not easy, actually.
Yeah, I think it was from the realization, and listening to yourself.
Truly.
Yeah, that's how it was. So from then, it kind of helped me pay attention to how I design my life in a mindful way. And because it coincided with my productivity journey, it kind of all flowed together. So the way I design my habits were all designed focused around literally focusing. So I would, my first thing in the morning, I would wake up, brush my teeth, I had some affirmations that I used to say to get myself hyped up for the day. And I would meditate, and then, I'll journal and I'll do other things. But everything was motivated by the desire to know myself. And I think that's something that, most people go through it in high school when they're trying to figure out what they want to do for a living. But it has to happen every time. Even now at 24, after having, gone through a few cycles of life changes, I still go back to meditation whenever life feels like I don't know what to do with it and I don't know where to go. I just go back to myself and listen, and things come up, thoughts pop up, images pop up, memories, things that I care about, things that hurt me. It's such a good way of doing therapy on your own.
Journaling as well. Exactly what you describe now is what I do to go to those moments is by journaling. It's such a great way of reflecting, processing the thoughts. And oh my God, I cannot tell you how many times I came to realizations by just journaling, like in the moment while writing it down, like writing the sentence. I'm like, how did I not think of this before? How did I not see this before?
Isn't that so cool? What were your mindfulness practices? So you found these courses. How easy was it for you to integrate these practices in your day-to-day life and start paying attention to maybe your habits and routines at first?
I'm so excited about it. I approached it in a way that you describe it. I had a desire to know myself, to understand some of my patterns, to understand some of my behaviors. Because I knew there were things that I had to improve, and I knew that there were things that I would avoid thinking about. And I wanted to think about them. In that, like, I felt like I was ready and I had guidance through this course to do that. With that, I started journaling a lot. I was journaling even before, but before it was just what happened to my day, if there was a drama in school, and that was it. I didn't write too much about my thoughts, emotions, what happened and how I felt about it. I didn't write about that. I wrote just what was happening. That was it. But with those courses and with therapy, I started writing so much about my inner thoughts. And
you were crafting your life. You're kind of crafting it, Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was curious. I think that was I was curious. What more can I find about myself? Like, why did I react that way? Why am I feeling like this because a person said that? Why am I afraid to say something if I think person is going to react in certain way if I say something like, okay, what if they react? Like, what will I think of myself if they react in that way? So, asking yourself questions, good tough questions that usually, you maybe want to avoid. I was so eager to ask myself those questions.
That is why. So, okay, I need to ask you this question. Why were you so curious? Where did it come from? Because that is the key reason why most people wouldn't want to touch mindfulness or meditation, is because most people are scared of their own thoughts. Most people don't want to sit there and think because some hurtful memory will come up or some intense emotion will come up. Obviously, like, why wouldn't people want to sit down and just listen? Because what's up there in their mind, it's very chaotic and difficult to deal with. What you just mentioned was a key element of sitting there, not avoiding things that you may want to avoid. Where did the courage come from?
Back then, I was listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot of self-help books. And one thing I learned was that we operate on subconscious level way more than we think. How we react to things, what we think about situations, people, people, things happening around us is much more on subconscious level than on a very conscious level. That also is shaping us, and it's very much affected by our childhood and how we grew up. I started with that. That was literally why I went to therapy. I wanted to understand things that there was no way for me by myself to understand. And I knew that there were some issues within my relationship with my parents that I wanted to work on. And I started therapy with that. And that's how we started talking about basically everything else.
That's super cool because there's exactly the same situation. I also started because I had some problems that I wanted to be aware of. It's exactly the same thing. You knew you had some things with your family. I knew you had some things with life in general. It's so important to take the time.
I think being self-aware is maybe one of the best qualities you can have.
Because you're also reliable and, you can control yourself and others can rely on you because things are not gonna, as you said, we operate so much at a subconscious level. And sometimes if you don't get a hold of that subconscious, you can hurt others, you can hurt yourself, you can really have a stable life.
Truly. And I have to say what really, really helped me a lot in that period was book and podcast, specifically podcast, more than just a book, by known and loved Jay Shetty.
Oh my God, yes. On purpose.
I was listening to that podcast every single week. I especially loved episodes when he was by himself without a guest, because usually those episodes were when he would get, it wasn't a conversation. It was just like him, like, I don't know, 5 things to do that or improve that, or the way, like, he was going straight to the point. They were like 20 to 40 minutes long, and there was main focus of the podcast, and that was it. Those episodes, oh my God, I listened with so much attention, and I was writing in my journal about sentences that he would say, and I was putting it into practice, because if one thing I learned up until that moment is, it doesn't matter what you know, it matters what you put in practice.
Oh, preach. I feel like that's a general thing.
You knowing things doesn't change the situation. It doesn't change anything. You putting action and actually practicing the things that you know is what will make any effect in your life.
For anybody who doesn't know, Jay Shetty is this ex-monk. He's an English guy, London guy, I guess, that ended up going to a monastery somewhere in Asia and became a monk. He's definitely the type that you wouldn't expect to become a monk. And then he came back and then he had this digital presence. So he's basically a monk. And the fact that you were enticed by this content speaks a lot to the quality of the content you had at the time.
And the name of the book, since I mentioned it, is Think Like a Monk.
Yeah. So it was a whole thing of like being a monk. I think I found out about Jay Shetty through Impact Theory, to be honest. We used to love watching this show when we were 3 years ago or 4 years ago, if I'm not wrong. And Impact Theory was one of my favorite shows about entrepreneurship, and it has all these guests that have interesting life stories, and they're very motivational. And one thing that appeared all the time was every high performer had a meditation or mindfulness practice.
Yeah.
All of them. And I think me being also a productivity junkie and I want to be the best, the greatest person, like I was super focused on what I was doing. And at the time I kind of defined the mission for myself. I was like, okay, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to be the best at trying to do this thing. Let me focus. And I came across that. That's super cool. So Jay Shetty, so you were listening to these things and you were taking down notes. What did you write down? Do you remember anything of the things that you adopted, any practices?
One of the practices that I adopted was what I mentioned in last podcast, doing reflections at the end of the week, questions to ask yourself at the end of the week. Another thing, because he talked a lot about relationships, was something that back then I was single, but I knew that when I was in a relationship, I wanted to practice this, which was to have I don't know if he suggested every week, but for me, I decided to do it every month on a month anniversary, every month, to ask, to reflect together with partner on the month before. Cool. But it, not to mention, it's not, it doesn't last for, I don't know, 30 minutes. It lasts literally 5 to 10 minutes. And it's nothing official that we have to sit down. No. We can just either go for a walk or we're laying in bed. It doesn't matter. A question, how was this month for you? But regarding our relationship, not how was it business wise, nothing like that, but just with our relationship. Is there anything that you lack of from me, from the relationship? Is there anything that maybe I didn't support you in a way that you wanted me to and needed me to? What was, and questions that are, it's important, and I annoy Stefan to think of concrete, like precise answers, is what was good and what was bad. Because when I ask him what was good, he's like, everything is good. I'm like, no, you have to give me a specific, what was the, like, what memory maybe you remember. I have to, take it out of him, but I do that. And actually today, when we record this, today is 2 years and 8 months how we're together. And I'm still going strong with these questions, still not giving up. Because it reflects, it's a good reflection question, and it maybe again on an unconscious level, you think about it in the next month and trying to improve that. Because talking about these questions, I realize that in some periods of times there is a pattern that we repeat. I want to, and by being aware of it, I can get better.
What pattern?
Like after, there would be periods of time when we would completely, for example, just not go on dates, which is not about the date, but intentionally set quality time. We would be caught up at work or caught up with maybe our own individual thoughts, and you get kind of distant, and you forget to have that quality time, which is not just watching TV, because when you watch TV, you don't talk. There is no quality time in that, which is not to say that that's a bad thing at all, but having actually like getting ready, going to literally cafe. It doesn't have to be dinner. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be even just a walk, but like, okay, let's go to the city center, get dressed, and just go and talk. And there are periods of times when it's so much easier to neglect that. And when I think of what I needed in the relationship from, for example, previous month, often would be going on more dates.
Yeah, that is such a, first of all, top communication. That is such a good skill for ensuring communication is present and is good and it's healthy in a relationship. And I'm sure this helps you guys maintain clear communication and check-in points of how things are going, and it can help you see patterns, reflect, evaluate compared to the previous month. It's such a type A relationship. It's so cool hearing you talk about this and also successfully implementing it. That's an example of being in a mindful relationship and being present. Two things that go hand in hand and are so instrumental when it comes to mindfulness is being present and being intentional as well.
Yeah. We were mentioning some practices that we tried. Have you tried something that surprised you, that you didn't expect that it would work out, that it would have any impact on you, but it turned out that it did, that it was maybe much more important than you thought it was?
I have a few practices I do, and they have proven to be instrumental to my life. So one of the things that I do, apart from, actually, let's start with meditation. In terms of meditation, I'm very structured when it comes to my meditation now. So if it started with Headspace and just, 10 seconds of, initially it was just 10 seconds. I put on a timer. I would sit cross-legged on the floor, put on a timer for 10 seconds and try to just sit and calm down. For anybody with ADHD, this is good training. Like, it's good behavioral therapy to help you. So that was, initially it was that. And then as I got better and my time length increased, I would then obviously had Headspace, and then they have 5-minute meditations, 10-minute meditations, 1-minute meditations, and those are guided and they teach you the basics. I think I did their fundamentals course. It used to be free in the past. I'm not sure if it's anymore, but I did that. I remember for 1,000 minutes, like over the years, and I was like, wow, I spent, it compounded. It's super, I was proud of that.
It's an achievement. It is.
Yeah, it was over the years, obviously, like 3 years or so, but I religiously used that app every day and things compounded. And then after I moved on to guided meditations on YouTube, I found something that I liked, maybe a particular message that resonated with me. Maybe it had music, maybe it had a soothing voice, or it was on a particular topic. If I wanted to reflect on self-esteem or self-awareness or positivity, I would put on the flavor of guided meditation that I wanted. I remember at some point we used to share guided meditations.
Yeah.
It was super cute. And then after that, I went into a few more like extreme steps. I never went to a retreat, but I wanted to do long periods of meditation. And on my gap year, which was a year for self-discovery, I would do maybe 30 minutes, an hour plus of meditation. I think my longest was an hour and a half or something like that, of just sitting. And
Whoa.
you really empty your mind when you do that. And I remember when I was doing this long meditation in my gap year, I was reflecting on my childhood a lot, and like images would pop up, and it's so interesting. I never did it afterwards again. Like everything I do, I reach a limit and then I give up on it. I don't necessarily give up on it, but after a point, you just need to readjust. That was meditation wise.
Can
Loved
I
it.
ask you
Yeah.
something about those long meditations?
I also tried Zen meditation, which is like traditional, and I would go to a temple and I had a guru, and I didn't like it. It was too traditional and it was a bit boring. Like Zen meditation, if it works for you, it works for you, but I didn't like that one. There's other methods. Please go on.
Okay, so now I have another question. What is the difference between Zen meditation and regular guided meditation? I mean, I know there are different types of meditation, but specifically for Zen, it's just to relax you.
So initially, Zen meditation comes from a Chinese tradition. So Buddhism itself, like the meditation practice, mindfulness is a modern adaptation of Buddhist practices, which are a religion from the East. And in the East, there are different types of Buddhism. There is different tradition. There is Zen Buddhism, there is Tibetan Buddhism, and each has its own traditions based on the location. Zen Buddhism itself it has its own way of sitting, its own way of holding your hands, its own philosophy. For example, it's not focusing on your breathing like mindfulness maybe, or your sensations. In Zen, you just try to observe your own thoughts and really not have any judgment, which is very different than normal mindfulness. I find that a bit too elusive, too hard for me to really get into. And also a bit too boring, because I do meditation to figure myself out, not to just observe the world by itself. It's super cool. I tried it, and there's a temple and there's a room where everybody meditates together, and I wanted to try kind of like a group meditation because I knew in the past I liked them. I did actually went to a training session at one of the NGOs that I worked for, where one of our trainers, the president of the organization, she would make these training sessions that were honestly the best presentations I've ever seen in my life, because it would be like a company-wide meditation session, and it was fantastic. So that's where I was like, okay, group meditations are just a different type of. And I went to also, there's mindfulness groups in Lancaster where I used to study, and those are really cool because sometimes you'd have a monk or somebody that teaches you a lesson in the first place, and a lesson from the tradition, kind of like an Orthodox religion. You'd have scriptures, and there will be a lesson for each story when you go on Sunday to church. In Buddhism, there's the same thing. You have a book, and then each book has it's called the Six-Way Path or something. Is basically the principles of a good Buddhist, and it's just a more formal way of doing meditation, and I liked it because at that time I wanted to become more spiritual rather than just use mindfulness for focusing. I was using it as a way of reaching spirituality, of maybe going a bit more into religion and seeing how that has space in my life. So yeah.
What I noticed, societies in UK are serious. Different societies. I know you were telling me about throughout your university about different societies. I don't know a better word for
Groups,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just like from time to time go have fun, like, or just go, but it was
Pretty formal,
they were
right?
organized. Yeah.
Yeah, this was a town thing, so it was a temple. It was a house that was used for that. But if you think about it, yeah, in the UK there's lots of things because they used to have hippies. So
quickly to go back to the question I wanted to ask you about those long meditations, were you noticing different if I can ask, different sensations in your body, like after 40 minutes, after 1 hour? Because I would imagine after hour and a half, you don't just you feel nothing. Was that the case, or you feel everything
that's such
in
a
your
good
body?
question. Such a good question. Well, you do obviously depends on the type of depending on the type of meditation, you'd feel certain things at the end. In my day-to-day meditations, I'll just feel a sense of clarity, and that's a big plus on its own. And then for some, I used to do one of my favorite meditation techniques is doing boxed breathing, and also Wim Hof. Again, two different types of mindfulness. Wim Hof is this guy called the Iceman, who is a Swedish guy, I believe, who he's the guy that kind of made the whole cold exposure
Yeah.
ice bath trendy. There's an episode with him and Yes Theory, travel channel, where they do this retreat that he is recommending, and he's teaching them his method, which is basically hyperventilation. I tried it once. It does make you feel in his routine. I remember I got really good at the way of breathing that he's recommending, which is basically a very intense inhale, and then you hold your breath, and then you slowly exhale. But the holding your breath is it's a bit long. It's actually quite long. I could never do it for that length. But the inhale, that's so deep. It taught me how to breathe properly from my belly, and then kind of guide that air through my entire body. And when you do that, first of all, you really oxygenate your brain. A lot of the air, just you kind of guiding it to the top of your head. And I remember it's great. It's an instant relaxation, but never stand up when you do it. Because I remember I was doing it, just I was working and I was just in between tasks, and I was, let me just breathe a bit to be present in this next task. And I remember I almost fainted because it was just so intense, and I was so tired, and all this tiredness came up. So do it standing. So
laying down, you mean?
yeah,
Or sitting?
This one is done laying down. I don't
Yeah.
like laying down on my back, so I just do it sitting cross-legged. So this is one sort of sensation you can have. But in the very long meditations, first of all, your legs go numb after a while. So it's hard to just focus constantly. In retreats, I think that you're advised against trying to adjust when your legs go numb. But what I feel sometimes in long meditation sessions, or in meditations where I use very intense breathing techniques, is that I can sometimes feel tired. Like it's not what I want. And I struggle with that sometimes, where, when you're stressed, you hold a lot of that stress in your belly area. Your abs are tense, your stomach is tense. You don't really take deep breaths. But once you get to mindfulness, you really learn how to breathe through your belly, because that expansion releases some chemicals that makes you very calm and relaxed. That's the sort of breathing you have when you'd be relaxed. When I'm really tense, trying to force my body to be relaxed makes it difficult. And sometimes, I would end up yawning, and just when I yawn, sometimes I cry when I yawn.
Whoa.
Yeah, when I yawn, sometimes I cry, especially when it's like early in the morning. I don't know. It happens to me sometimes when I meditate, and actually quite often, in fact. And that would not be the type of effect I wanted. So sometimes you have to take it easier and to just focus on your body and to just do a body scan. That's another one of the things that you learn when you're meditating. There's a bunch of different things you can use meditation for. You can observe your thoughts. You can relax yourself by doing breathing exercises, or you can notice your body to see where you hold tension. So it's very good for your health.
Yes, two things that I keep practicing basically daily, which I started doing when I started meditating, even though I'm not meditating now. I don't remember when was the last time I meditated. Two practices that that made a really big impact on me are those belly breaths. I never realized that that's actually the correct way of breathing, not from lungs, but from belly. And I knew that through those guided meditations, when they like whenever you take a deep breath, like expand your belly. And I'm like trying to focus on how to do that, what do you mean? And the second thing is that body scan, which is something that I do whenever I feel tension, I feel nervous. Last time, for example, 2 weeks ago, when I had that race, 10K race in Belgrade, I was nervous because I usually do get nervous before race. Not usually, always. Before any type of race, I do these two things exactly, like breathing, trying to focus on my breath. Oh my God, that's such a small thing.
Oh, yeah.
It feels like, but it's such a big impact to pay attention to your breath. Literally, you don't have to do breathing exercise. You can just breathing normally, but focus on how you're breathing. And the second thing is body scan. Before, especially because when I feel nervous before the race, I usually feel nervous in my stomach. I have stomach ache and it's uncomfortable. And I try to focus my attention on my stomach, how I'm feeling in my stomach right now, like trying with breathing to slow down, to just change the inner talk and trying to calm myself down.
It's so cool that you mentioned running because it helps so much with running as well.
Yes.
There is this guy, Sam Harris, that at some point, he's like a modern philosopher or something, very modern though. He said once that, we often try to escape from pain, and meditation really helps your endurance because, for example, when you run, your legs can go further. Your mind is the one that's not prepared to handle the pain of running. But if you focus on that pain, it almost goes away. So the way you'd focus on your belly, it's you don't even have to do anything. It's just observe it and it diffuses.
That's the exact same thing that you can read in a book, The Power of Now.
Oh yeah, Eckhart Tolle.
Toll, yeah.
The book.
That's exactly the same thing he was talking about. Usually, when we feel pain in or ache in a body, we try to distract ourselves. And he's talking about how you need to actually bring the attention to that, to the pain, to the ache that you feel in the stomach. Not necessarily stomach, but whatever it is in the body that you feel it. And it was a new way of thinking for me. I never thought of it. I always thought, because you always, at least me growing up, it was always the advice, don't think about it. If you don't think about it, you'll pass.
Oh yes.
But you should think about it, apparently, turns out.
Yeah, and it's such good therapy as well. Just, mindfulness, it helps you see patterns from the past, it helps you see your childhood because these things come up. And then as Eckhart said, if you pay attention on it and you create time to look at these things, they let go, they diffuse, you make sense of them, and you can just let them go.
Yes, yeah. I loved that.
Okay, so we've seen meditation can help us in our relationships, in our day-to-day life. What was the impact of meditation on the way you handle stress these days? Because it helped me a lot, actually. That was the main reason why I used meditation, in fact. I remember I was at this event or self-development course or something that was in person, and we had like a workshop, and we had an exercise that was a competition in teams. I was very young, I was like 15, but I remember I got so panicked under the time pressure and so stressed. And one girl looked at me and was like, Bianca, calm down. And when she said that, I realized, oh, wait, yeah, everybody else is calm. Why am I so hyper? Why am I so sensitive to this? So meditation really helped me with that and mindfulness. Because, once you have a meditation practice, the feeling kind of carries you throughout the day, don't you think?
Yes. And you don't even notice that it affects other parts and how you're behaving, especially with those thoughts that when you're meditating, usually they say, think of your thoughts as balloons or clouds passing by and don't attach to them, just observe them, let them pass. And I do that with thoughts whenever I feel that I might be re-questioning myself or like rethinking or starting to overthink. And definitely that moment to stop and pause and come back to my body, because we are so much in our head and so little in our body. And look, our head is just a little bit small, look how long our body is, how big our body is. We have to pay much more attention to our body, and I love that meditation is focusing on that. And I noticed that before and even now, I do have similar physical symptoms whenever I feel stressed. Like I have stomach ache, nervous stomach, I have cold hands, I'm sweating, but my inner talk is much different now. Before, in the stressful situation, I would amplify the stress. I would just keep thinking and overthinking of the situation, going to the worst case scenario, and it did not help. But now I have that moment to pause, to just get back on that belly breathing and start from there. Literally like a few seconds reset and then start from there.
Yeah. It sounds like you had a little bit of anxiety there, which meditation is very good at. I also had the same thing when I remember I was in school and we were outside on the court or something, and I had like received bad news about something, about my university applications or something like that. And I got really down down, or I just had, a lot of thoughts in my mind and I was amplifying how things are gonna go badly. And at the time I had like a bunch of things on my schedule. I was running a project, I was having to do my things, I was working out, I was applying to unis. And I remember I went to a different court, like we were outside with the entire classroom, and I needed some time to calm down. And I literally pulled myself aside from the group, went somewhere and started meditating. I was like not sitting cross-legged on the floor. I was just, at the bench or something, alone, breathing, trying to calm down. And people were like, is she okay? Did something happen? But I was just trying to kind of calm myself down, which I think people are not used to seeing people be mindful and calm down in public.
Yeah.
But it's cool, and obviously people are not used to this, especially in our country. But you're right, it does help noticing and then letting go of it, and most certainly will help in relationships and communication with other people, in generally the way you view life. It teaches you patience, and maturity.
Yeah, truly, I agree.
So, because I know you're a routine girly,
Mhm.
I assume you have some sort of routine that you keep up around mindful habits or rituals.
What I implement is journaling, and I stopped journaling for a second and I returned it back because I noticed I needed somewhere to let my thoughts out. Writing it on a piece of paper is what worked for me for years. Now I go back to journaling, breathing again. How many times am I gonna say breathing in this podcast?
So it's
No, I'm
simple
trying
now.
to think. Yeah, and I think that I don't, because I've been doing these things for so long, not just these what we talk about, but probably some other things throughout my day, how I communicate with myself throughout the day, how I choose to react on things daily. I don't now see them as something like I do it not consciously, because I paid attention at the beginning, on how I'm perceiving things, but now it's just part of how
Your
I'm,
life.
yeah, and I'm not consciously thinking how I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's such a real part of the journey, though, because I also took a break after a while. Actually, to go back to one thing you said that I found really important to emphasize is these things help you throughout the day, but also in parts that you wouldn't expect. So, for example, one thing in which meditation has helped me a lot, and I didn't expect it, was taking decisions. Because we are often so much in our thoughts and not in our body, we can often over intellectualize decisions, or
Mhm.
maybe how we react to others or the way we think about others or stuff like that. But the most unexpected benefit of meditation was being able to think with my entire intuition and to tap into my intuition, which it's only accessible to you if you can feel your body and you can notice it and not kind of going down
On a rabbit hole.
in a rabbit hole, yeah, just like spiral into your thoughts. And I find that a lot of people struggle with that. They maybe are aware of maybe psychological patterns, but only intellectually, and they wouldn't be able to think. And I used it, out of all places, I used it when I did maths. Like, meditation has made me a better physicist.
Tell me about it. Tell me more about it.
Oh, well, I would always, in a technical field, you'd always think with your brain, but it reaches a point when you become good at things and you have all this knowledge where following your intuition leads to the best outcome, and it just flows effortlessly. It's with any craft, with anything you've done for a while, even with writing or with a hobby. And with anything really, you just have to be able to listen to yourself and to follow your intuition. And the way it manifested in my life was, for example, let's say I would have to do a very difficult problem, right? Or I have a worksheet, or I have to do this in a few hours. First of all, I learned, and I would use this aphorism before, is slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And when you want to slow down, speed up. When you want to speed up, slow down. This is something I got from a TED Talk.
I heard that.
It was so good. And whenever I had to work under a deadline, I would slow down and it would help me think clearly, because you can't tackle a difficult problem when your mind is racing.
True.
Be it in your personal life that has many things. Maybe you're dealing with a complex social situation and you don't want to hurt this person's feelings, but you want to express yourself, but there is a boundary, but you like them, but you don't like them. All these pieces. Or it can be a quantum physics problem and there's a bajillion different parameters and you have no idea what quantum physics is. Both are very useful stressful to tackle with a clear mind. And then that helps you take things slowly, step by step, in careful steps, and you reach the best outcome. And as an example, I became like a top 10 student in one module, in one worksheet, because I was one of the few 10 students to do this thing perfectly. And it was a work I've done at 3 a.m. in the morning, from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or something, for 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. or something like that. And only reason why I got this right is because I was slowing down in the middle of stress, able to think one step at a time and take things slowly. Although I had a deadline, I had a difficult thing to do, I could be stressed right now, but I chose not to, because I had this tool from meditation to slow down. And whenever you have a busy period or you're dealing with stuff in life, taking the time in the morning, taking the time to slow yourself down just prepares you to be the best version.
One thing you said, you chose to slow down. Important thing to remember, that you have a choice. It's a choice how you're gonna react and how you're gonna continue. They say you cannot control your first thought, but you can control your second.
Cool.
From there, you can choose how you want to react to the situation and the stress. And also, I think asking good questions. Like, there's, I don't know, someone feeling overwhelmed of tasks that they put maybe on themselves, and as they have a lot of things to do, there was a question that I heard recently, is to ask yourself, is this really important? Or am I making it important with my thinking, with my, if I can add overthinking? Because we don't, when we don't know, it's also what I heard, I really like it, it's funny, but it's true. When we don't, let's say, have things to do, we create problems just to have something to solve. We have the tendency to just keep our minds busy, keep ourselves busy. Why not just be? Why not just exist where you are? You don't have to necessarily do any things all the time. Be bored. In a world of social media, it's such a challenge.
I was about to make the same segue. People these days, they use social media as, as a pacifier, the adult pacifier. You know, the thing that you put in for kids to stop crying. That's exactly the way us scrolling on social media is we don't allow ourselves to be bored because of the overthinking. And I think maybe that's exactly the reason people would much rather grab social media to soothe themselves than to sit with than meditate, for example. But so it's important to kind of create that empty space. So how do you do it? Because I know you've had a really good journey of digital mindfulness. I personally don't really have that much experience with it because I was off social media for a long period of my life and just recently started being more online. But I do find that it's quite hard to manage. So how do you do it?
I don't know how did I get that idea? Probably on YouTube. But a few years ago, I don't remember when I started, but I know that it was 2022 and I was doing it. So it's probably much before that. I was doing digital detox, which is a habit that I wanted to implement and start practicing once a month to have off-screen day. It was usually weekend, for example, Sunday. But if there was a holiday or I don't know, I wouldn't have work during the week, but I was out of off that I don't have to turn on my laptop or have classes or whatever. I would do it throughout the week, but usually during weekends. It doesn't matter when. It was important for me to have full day without turning not just social media, but actually not turning my Wi-Fi at all. Like if someone would text me, I would message. Almost never happened because people don't text nowadays. If someone would call me, I would answer. I would talk because it would be a quality time talking with someone, having a conversation. Because that's also a thing that I notice I sometimes do. I would put the person on speaker and then I would go on Facebook and scroll. Like I would talk and then I would be on social media and scroll. Yeah, and not doing that and just being with the person, going back on what you mentioned, mindfulness and relationships, listening to someone and being active listener was something that I wanted to practice more. And it is something you can practice once you're aware that you're doing something that you don't think it's contributing to the conversation. During that day, when I would have those off-screen days, I would usually plan some activities that I wanted to do that day because it wasn't a point to just like I don't know, sit and not do anything during the day, I would go out. But I would go out, for example, without my headphones, which is something that I do more and more now. But back when I started, I was always with my headphones. Like, what do you mean I don't go out and I don't listen to the music? So being without my headphones, being don't listening to music or I don't know podcasts in the background while cleaning or whatever that I would like cooking or whatever that I was doing, those things just allowing to have silence around me with that off screen day was important for me. I would always go back to hobbies.
Oh yeah, like actual hobbies, not
True.
staying on social media. That's a thing you can fill your time with.
True. And I found on Pinterest and I wrote it in a piece of paper. Literal activities, like so many activities you can do off the phone, just as a reminder or inspiration. That there are things that maybe you wouldn't think of, like scrapbooking, for example. That it could be fun to do, or buy a magazine and do a little bit of a collage. Do something that it's not necessarily social media.
Yeah. Is that why you got the coloring book?
Yes.
It's such a cool
Yes.
thing. It's a very interesting point you made. I never thought about it that way. Yeah, you can just have a lot of hobbies and use your free time for hobbies. I think also that's the reason why I was off social media for a long time, is because when I started doing mindfulness, I was also, going through this existential crisis and deciding what to do with my life. And I unintentionally filled my schedule with a lot of meaningful things to do. I had too many things I wanted to do than time on my hands. So I would always prioritize that than for example staying on social media, which is similarly to what you do. You have a hobby and do that. But how do you
Yeah.
kind of pull yourself out of the rabbit hole of scrolling and always being online? Because I find it now, it's very good that I did meditation before I got into like social media, because I have the skill of catching myself becoming a bit brain fried.
How I noticed, I didn't have Facebook account before and even Instagram account, but those were accounts that on Instagram, it wasn't my name, it wasn't my picture, it was just like literally my username was unicorn something. And yeah, and on Facebook, I was never active, like maybe in high school with friends that you joke and like post, so many embarrassing posts on Facebook. But when I grew older, I was never very interested in social media. I did get, even using those accounts, I did get in that rabbit hole with just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and I didn't like how I feel afterwards.
Yeah.
And again, watching people on YouTube, listening to the girls talking about effects on social media, and not just girls, I mean also podcasts talking about it, I started paying more attention on how it made me feel. And last year, February 2024, was a peak moment where I realized this is very toxic for me, because I was on social media I had my Instagram page like about teaching, but in that moment I wasn't teaching full time. I was doing my corporate job, but I was teaching aside, and I was still following. Most of the people who I was following were entrepreneurs, online entrepreneurs, and they would always, sell new things, which is okay. I mean, it's what you do. But most of them I met through those programs and educations from before, and it started to be very annoying that in those posts I would see those mentors' words, like exact words. It felt like copy pasting. I saw it, all of them. You can see that they were all in the same program.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see because I was in the program. It's just, it didn't feel authentic, and it felt like people were not really thinking with their heads. I'm generalizing because I don't want to go in depth because it's a completely different topic. But I started comparing myself and how I'm leading the page, how I'm, managing the page. And it took me a while actually to understand that I'm not doing this full time anymore. They're doing it full time. And of course, they're gonna, create new courses, create new programs, create new products, trying to sell it, trying to talking about that all the time. And I'm not, because it's not my main job anymore to teach. Before I realized that, I started feeling very lost, and I avoided writing about it in journal because I was afraid of what will come up. I avoided it by being on social media more. And by being on social media more, I started feeling like even worse. I started feeling even more lost. And I was messaging my mentor, who was in that moment was not my mentor, but she was before. And she's a woman that I really, really love and respect. And I appreciate her opinion. And she wrote a newsletter about that topic around that time. And I replied to the newsletter and I explained how I'm feeling and just generally the situation. She asked me a few questions that I could ask myself. I was like, okay, it's time to bring the journal. I can't avoid this anymore. And so I decided to get off social media. It was so easy to do, actually. I didn't dwell on it. I didn't like, oh, let me just, I'll do it tomorrow. Let me just like scroll as much as I can, Yeah. And it was so easy to do because I needed it so much. And I just deactivated it. Since then, I didn't post at all. I'm not active on my page. I do have it. I didn't completely delete the page. I just don't have the app on my phone. I don't have my account on my phone. And whenever I want to go to Instagram account, I have to open my laptop, which I do only when we record podcasts and when I prepare for a class. And that's it. And since I felt so good afterwards, since I gave myself time and space to think, to feel, to rewire my brain on that definition of feeling lost, because I was so worried to let go of my expectations that I had from myself, to let go of goals that I set before, because I was so afraid that I'm gonna get off track and I'm just gonna neglect myself if I don't work on my goals constantly, and if I don't know where I'm going constantly and what I'm doing with my life constantly. I had to just pause and be like, no, this can be a good opportunity to explore what I like, what I want. Do I still want to achieve these goals? Do I want to be on this same path? What, maybe teaching is not my focus and I don't want it to be my focus right now, and that's okay. So I gave myself time, and also with hobbies, like doing something doing something that basically also meditation does for you. It's like you're not letting yourself, like your thoughts just wander while, for example, just painting or doing embroidery or some stuff like that. That helped. And so I never came back because it felt very nice. It felt really good.
Oh my God, Jovana, I was applauding you here. That was gold. You literally shared a nugget of gold there with the way you described dealing with the feeling of being lost. I feel like that is something that most people deal with, and it's most people struggle to get out of. Hence why we reach to social media, we reach to numbing ourselves. We need the dopamine of, I can see somebody's life online and I can feel more figure out with my life. But then once you step out of it, you realize, oh my God, I am lost. I don't have my life figured out. What do I do? That's scary. And I remember reading once that we need time to be inspired. It's not necessarily, we don't have
That's
to always
true.
know where to go. Yeah. And these hobbies, this time off helps you be inspired. And for example, in my case, recently I've also felt the same thing that you have felt in the past and you're describing. This feeling of, I've changed so much throughout the years that I saw different sides of myself, and now I don't really know who I am anymore. I do know who I am, but I need the time to sit down with me and filter through this new experience and filter the change and rediscover who I am now. It's an ongoing process getting to know yourself,
Yes. I want to say something that might help someone else. It's something that I always do whenever decision that I make. I ask myself, how am I feeling about this decision? How am I feeling about whatever the decision was, whatever something that was that I was maybe procrastinating doing or was afraid of doing? I ask myself, do I feel okay now? Do I feel good with me not having social media? Do I feel relieved? Do I feel so what? Yeah, however I feel. And that, going back to the feeling, which is also going back to your body,
So wait,
is something that I practice.
I didn't quite understand that last part. So every time you make a decision, you check in with yourself to see if you feel good about it?
Decision that it was maybe difficult to make. I'm not talking about just daily
Ah,
decisions. Like, do I want to go to the gym? Do I not? What is my body telling me right now?
oh yeah,
No.
stay in bed.
Yeah. Definitely. No, not like that. But for example, I had a situation just 2 days ago. I wrote a message to a friend. I was debating if I should write or not. And it was basically saying something that was bothering me. And my point of view of our friendship. Going back to the topic of friendship, in the last few months, after sending the message and getting the reply, and then sending my reply, basically, I questioned, because at the beginning, I questioned, did I do a right thing? Should I have done that? Or should I have not said anything? But then I went back and asked myself, how do I feel right now after sending the message, after starting this conversation? And I
Yes.
felt good. I felt happy for myself that I did it. And I even wrote to her, I said to her in the message, I sent you, that message that I sent was more for me, not for you. It was for me to show myself that I don't want to be quiet when I feel like I shouldn't be quiet, because for a long time I would avoid conflict and didn't want to do that anymore. Didn't want to be afraid anymore. No, anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but
It's a great tangent. It's a great tangent. It just shows how meditation and mindfulness can help you become more, be your own best friend. And for people, a lot of people end up being, for example, emotionally neglected by XY person, a partner, a parent, yourself. It's good to be honest with yourself and who you are, what you want, and what you're feeling. And I feel like meditation has helped me with that as well, because I would do introspections. So what I would call introspections would be moments where I use meditation to make a decision. And one thing I found is, oh my God, this was life changing for me, is that sometimes the right decision isn't the one that has the most pros on the list, but the ones that feels good to you.
yeah.
It can be even counterintuitive. I remember I wanted to go on this trip. It's a bit more complicated than that. Obviously, things are nuanced, but it's important. If something feels like a hell yeah, then go with that. If something doesn't feel right, even though intellectually it makes sense, listen to your heart. Meditation helps you to do that. And it helps you, if you make a decision with your body, you'd regret it less. That's one thing that people have found, is if you make a decision just by pros and cons and you make the wrong one, you'd kind of beat yourself up because you didn't analyze it well enough. But if you make it with your heart, you accept it a lot easier, because your heart is your heart. You can't really, in my
Control it. Yeah. And
yeah,
it's the best thing
and
is that you instantly have that feeling if it's a good or bad
it's hard
thing.
sometimes to access, though, that feeling. Reason why, because it can be so muffled up into noise
Mhm.
from your
Mhm.
life, from fears, from stuff like that. I remember, and this is getting very personal, I used this when I recently broke up with my previous boyfriend. I know that the way you said, how do you feel afterwards? I'm not gonna lie, it felt like a relief. It felt so, and although I really loved this person, the fact that my body was telling me this is the right path, I had to listen. And it feels, and this is kind of, it's being true to yourself. It's hard, but it's useful. So taking it back to maybe a lighter topic, back to the social media thing. When I found myself being a bit lost this past couple of months, I wanted to stay on social media because I didn't want to sit with the uncertainty. And the uncertainty pushes you to solve problems. The uncertainty is scary. So if you sit down, sometimes people find it overwhelming, and I did myself. Reason why, actually, I took a 2-year break out of meditation. After I had that gap year when I would meditate for a year, for a year and a half, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, I took a break. And I did miss it. I must say, taking a break from meditation definitely impacted my life negatively, but was so hard to meditate during that time because it was so hard. So sometimes you need to meditate after the fact when you feel ready, but it is important. And that's what I wanted to say, is when you are at a period in life where things are very uncertain, you don't have the answers, and it's hard for you to sit still and actually confront it. It's very important that you do use mindfulness in a way that helps you discover what you want in life. And that would genuinely push you forward. I feel like in my case, if I sit down and meditate and I see all these problems and I see all these mistakes, all these regrets, things that I've done in my past, I can integrate them, I can process them, and I can let them go. And afterwards, you reach this inner peace, which is the perfect place to get started with a transformation and get started with where are you going in life. So most of the time we aren't stuck, but we just haven't processed our life or our emotions enough.
Yeah, we didn't give ourselves space to do that.
Yeah. And it takes time. It will take time. If you have a lot of things going on and if you've stopped meditating for a while, start small. Start easy with maybe 1 minute, 10 seconds, however long you can last. But start very, very small and build the habit, because it's going to take time. But if you do put in the time, it's going to transform your life.
Yeah, even if it's not meditation, even if it's some other mindful practice that you want to implement and you haven't done it before, always start small. It should feel that it's so easy that you would have no problem doing it. That's the goal. It should feel like it's easy, and it should feel like it's so small. All those mindfulness tactics are not, such grand gestures and big things that take so much of your day to do. It's just start.
Fantastic. And that is a good way to end it on. This episode was, I must say, one of my favorite ones so far, because it touched on so many different things and it really came from the heart. We talked about how mindfulness changed our life, how it changed our relationships, how it really is a tool that can help you reach a transformation in your life and can make you have a more fulfilled, present, digitally detoxed lifestyle.
Yeah. Shout out to you, Bianca, for showing up to record this when you're sick, you have a cold. I really, really appreciate it.
Well, if you guys have any questions, you can reach out on Instagram and TikTok at Chicas Plus Equals. We're also on YouTube and Spotify whenever we launch, and we look forward to maybe getting questions from you or hearing from you. We generally love doing these episodes, so catch up with you next time.
Yeah, bye.
Ciao.